Hey, Jenny.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Hi, Shannon. Hi, Mark.
Hey, how are y'all? All doing okay?
Yes, you?
Doing great, yes.
Jenny, is this set up on Facebook again, like last time?
As soon as we're ready to go, I will start streaming it live right over to our Facebook account too. So it's being recorded right now. So everything we say is recorded.
Okay.
But I guess I'll go ahead and do that right now. I'll kick it over to.
Okay, Kyle, so keep the inappropriate jokes to a minimum.
Yes, we're going live to Facebook right now.
So Mark, we generally give it a couple minutes to get, to let people join.
Okay.
On the prior security special meetings that we had, we had some pretty good turnout. So I'm hoping that, and there was interest in a follow-up. So hopefully 7 becomes 47 fairly quickly here. Otherwise,
Yeah,
maybe a short meeting.
it's okay. Shannon, would you like me to share my screen so I can show the PowerPoint that we presented to the board last night?
Yeah, that would be great.
Can you give me sharing rights?
Give me 1 second. I have to do that for you. I'm just working on the live stream right now. So in 1 second, I'll give you access to that.
Right. We did send out a reminder today from Seaholm too, so hopefully that will have reminded people as well.
I'm at the track meet. I could go grab a bunch of people.
That's okay.
They're
Mark,
standing out there in the rain.
I think you should be able to share your screen at this point. Let me know if you have trouble.
Can you see it okay now?
Yes. I'm just looking real quick before we get started. So Jenny, how would if I were on Facebook and I wanted to see it?
It's there. I just checked.
Okay.
If you go to the Seaholm High School PTA, we're streaming live right now. And we'll also post a copy of this to our YouTube page. Once the meeting ends, I can take the recording and transfer it to there too.
Got it. And yes, we are. That's wild, Jenny.
It took a little doing, my non-techie self.
There's a lag though. That's because it's just telling me about the Facebook side, but it's pretty cool. Okay, well, let's see. We got a
But
few.
even if we don't get a lot of people watching it tonight, the last meeting that we posted, we had, I think 240 people watched it after the fact, so.
Right. No, I think that's great. And I'm always super pleased with that. I do miss the interaction, but getting the information out there is the most important thing. So I'll take that as a win. So why don't we go ahead, because there are parents on the line so that are interested, and I also was unable to make the special meeting. So I'm also very curious how this went. I've heard great things and that it was very insightful. So looking forward to it. So Mark, with that, I'm just going to turn it over because I think the topic that was introduced in the e-news basically speaks on its own. It's a follow-up to talk about the safety audit and what came out of it and what the next steps are.
Well, good evening. I'm Mark Lindenberg. I'm Deputy Superintendent of Schools. I just started at the last day of January, so I've been here just over 3 months, or closing in on 3 months, and just a little bit about myself. This is my 31st year in public schools. I have done about everything in public schools. I was a social studies teacher and computer science teacher, a head football coach, and then I was a high school principal for a number of years, and a superintendent for 11 years, and just finishing a superintendency in Virginia for the last 5 years. And Halifax County, just real pleased to be a part of Birmingham Public Schools. And I have to say this, for the last couple of months, I visited Seaholm High School several times, and this is one of the most beautiful high schools I've ever seen, and I love all the course offerings that you have. The pool, the guidance, the new guidance suite that's updated. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with athletics and that new facility. So you have so much to be proud of, and I failed to mention this. I mean, you have such a great principal. I mean, I haven't known her long, Miss Hall. I mean, I got back a few years ago and got an English endorsement because I love the subject matter of English, and would go co-teach some as a superintendent. And Kyle and I have figured that we have this mutual love of Pat Conroy, who's a great author, and Bruce Springsteen and the East Street Band. So we've become buddies, and I admire her leadership, and certainly have already just thank the world of the Maples and Seaholm High School. So the safety audit, it was in progress and kind of in the works before I got here, and then Jason Russell is the person who headed it up. And he did it in early March, and we got the results in, I think, just before spring break. And since then, we've gone through every single point in the audit, broken it down, and even yesterday, I'm following up with Mr. Russell because there's some questions I have on implementation with the audit. And I'll say this, and I have it on the slide here. Our plan is to execute the audit to fidelity. If it's in writing in there, it's a recommendation from a safety expert, then we plan on executing it to the fullest extent possible. I am a high school. I feel like I will always be a high school principal, so I understand the challenges of a high school, and I understand the nuances of a high school. And I will say this: I met with police last week all across every jurisdiction that touches our school system, and I just cut right to the chase and said what we are really concerned about is the worst case scenario, and that's really the starting point, is how we can prevent anything, the worst case thing from there. And so I start with that context in mind. This is what the safety audit finding. I'll emphasize at the beginning is that SEC and Jason Russell, who headed it up, who was a former Secret Service person, he said that believes that Birmingham Public Schools done a remarkable job in developing and executing a comprehensive safety and security plan. That doesn't mean we don't have challenges. It doesn't mean it's not ongoing. Safety is all the time. So that set the context is there has been good work done in the schools, and I've visited as many high schools as anybody in America, and it looks like our two high schools have good security. It doesn't mean we don't have some improvements, and you'll see that threaded throughout this presentation. There's 24 findings in the audit, and I'm gonna touch on each one of them. There are a couple of them that I'm not going to go over, two that I'm not going to go over because they're safety sensitive, and there was some advice on cameras placement and those kind of things that I'm not going to go over because it's just in an effort to protect some of the findings there. So approach to safety, Birmingham Public Schools. I will start by this. I mean, the safety audit is what it is. It talks about safety itself, but safety in the school setting is a responsibility of every single stakeholder, of you and I and everybody else, every single student. And I will always believe this, that our best chance to prevent something really bad from happening in the school is to build strong relationships and have somebody tell us and share with us their fears or their concerns or whatever, and for us to investigate it. Naturally, kids trust their teachers, their principals, and that is always the very best case. And we have to always keep those positive relationships in mind. We are engaged in preventative strategies. Safety audit is a preventative strategy. Social, emotional learning, and mental health. You did a thought exchange as a community back in December or in the fall, right after post-Oxford, and it had a number of things on there. Questions asked about night locks, metal detectors, social emotional health. All those things led to this. Birmingham Public Schools has safety initiatives beyond the safety office. Go buckets were implemented in January and February. We have established a division safety committee, which includes 3 principals in our division and law enforcement. We have a threat assessment that we put in place, and we was updated in the fall. And then we have training next week. We have a number of administrators going. Oakland County is putting it on this next week. There's a Michigan School Safety Summit May the 3rd in Lansing that 3 of us are attending, and TCEP is our post-crisis intervention, and we have training for that as well. Well, this comes from my feedback from our principals, and this is what we've got to continue to work on internally is confidence that we are doing everything we can to ensure safety, and that's going to be implementing this safety plan and have a depository where all of our safety materials in one place. So I'm going to go through the findings, and what I'll ask is, because we can get bogged down, is to save your questions until the end, and I'm going to click through them one by one. I'm going to try to take my time because I know you haven't heard this information. So if I look down, I'm looking at my notes. Okay, finding 1 is, and you see finding, recommendation, and then who's implemented in the timeline goal for implementation. So finding 1 is SROs provided by local law enforcement are only part-time and are not chosen by the district. That's the current finding that we have. And the current SROs are scheduled to be at the schools 20 hours per week, but we're not getting them there. So our emphasis will be to contract full-time rather than part-time SROs going into next school year. Who's implementing that? Myself, human resources, and the business along with our principals, of course. The challenge with that is finding law enforcement right now is an area where there's a high demand for folks, and the job market is not great for that right now. So that's a challenge that we face with it. But we plan on having school resource officers in place by full-time by next school year. Finding 2, we currently employ a vendor for our uniform security guards, and there's been significant turnover and inconsistent, and we have hall monitors as well that we employ, and our plan is to have all security be hired and supervised by the same entity. And so we want to update and move away from our current security outsource to a new firm that we think would be more viable for us. And we plan on implementing that by the beginning of next school year. Finding 3, there's currently no formalized standard process for granting entry into BPS facilities. It doesn't mean we're doing bad. It's just that we don't have a formal process in place directing folks on how to do it. And not only that, we need to have some training for how to grant visitors into our schools, such as paying attention to body language, de-escalation strategies, and so forth. I was in contact with Mr. Russell today. We will begin to work on a day going into this next school year where we have training done for our folks who man our doors. So that is in the process taking place, implemented by myself. Training will be done by Jason Russell, and I did confirm that today. I do not have a date yet, but he will do the training for us. Finding 4 is BPS, like many other schools, utilizes ALICE training, decision-based to active violence. There's some gaps that we have to always address. One is it needs to be ongoing. 2 is we need to have establish on-board training for new folks as they come into our school division. So this is ongoing. There is a caveat to this, is that Oakland County schools are considering all going to the same system of ALICE based, but be more like it's Navigation 360. I'm not sure exactly, not as familiar with that one yet, but that is certainly talked about, so we can have consistent training across all schools in Oakland County. I will say this, our law enforcement, we met with 15 of them last week. They would like to see all Oakland schools have the same platform. So we will likely, whatever that training is for amongst school divisions, we will likely embrace that as way, because of law enforcement being on the same page with school divisions. Finding 5 finding 5 pertains to door numbering and making sure that the door numbers are identified accurately, and installing the proper notification on doors. And this simply helps with folks knowing if there is an emergency, knowing where to go in the buildings and so forth. We've begun this process. I'll tell you how serious we are about the safety audit. So not only has this been ongoing, we have a safety team which met police last week. We have an internal team of folks here as well, which is maintenance and our technology folks. We're meeting Friday morning to go over this plan again. What is the part of maintenance? What is the part of technology? And this all goes with us updating the door number. So Jason Hardy is our maintenance director, interim maintenance director, and he is implementing this as we speak. Finding 6 is we have some inefficiencies in our PA system, and also how to broadcast. Zach Riley Kelly, our director of technology, is working on this plan to ensure that we're able to broadcast appropriately, making sure that there are no weaknesses in, and exploring a simplification process of wording. And you'll see that threaded throughout this document as well with our wording, trying to just be more consistent in what we're doing with it. Finding 7, additional comprehensive guidance and procedures are needed for threats of the exterior facilities. And this is I think many safety experts believe that the exterior facilities are a target that we need to be aware of. And I talked to in email exchange with Jason Russell today. He's going to do some training with us on lockdown procedures when our students are outside during the school day, and guidance on perimeter and exterior besides just the inside of the building. Finding 8, training and procedures for after school related activities such as athletics and arts, and we want to devote additional resources and planning for training and staff for those areas as well, to make sure that we have training done in place. We plan on having that training done next year as well. And we will continue to work with Mr. Russell. He will provide the training for us. He's a safety expert for ball games and other activities. Finding 9, New cameras are often installed in place without consulting administrators. We've begun to rectify that already to make sure that our principals have say in where the cameras are most vulnerable areas. They know that part better than anybody else. Zach Riley-Kelly is working with our principals on that, and our maintenance team, technology team, to update that as we go on. Finding 10, a consistent policy for locking classroom doors should be developed. And we've already, a directive at our last principals meeting was to make sure that all classroom doors are locked. It can be propped over, but easily pulled shut. It's fine. We are lock indicator installation is ongoing in our schools as far as updating to show they're locked or unlocked, the doors. So this is a process we're in. We've already mandated it for that. Not only that, we've mandated that all division-wide principal meetings, we have a placeholder in every agenda on safety, and then all faculty and staff meetings that principals have. It's a mandate that there is an agenda item on safety. So safety is ongoing emphasis for us. Finding 11 is finding a secondary relocation point if there is a crisis, and we will work with our principals on finding that secondary relocation. We do have primary relocation sites if there is a crisis, and we plan on having that implemented by the 2022 school year. Another recommendation, and we're getting quotes on this right now, is although each classroom has go buckets, there are more emergency supplies that are needed in our schools, and some of those emergency supplies include blankets and places to store emergency. We have worked on a grant from the state, and in the grant, part of the grant, we have trauma kits that we've ordered, and also protective glass for our 5 secondary schools, which I'll touch on in just a second. And part of his finding also, and another one is that we have book bags, backpacks that are mobile with supplies in it as well. So we're in the process of this plan on having that implemented by the beginning of the school year. The Blue Point system is our emergency system, and the buttons are not tested regularly. I have requested from Blue Point to give us an update on procedures of the Blue Point, provide clarifications on what it is, what they can and can't do, and we'll have information to our principals on that in the days ahead. I think these are a great emergency tool for us, and real time system that allows all emergency folks to know there is a crisis at hand. There's some work we've got to do to test, make sure they're tested on a regular basis, and that'll be us updating with Blue Point, and then possibly some training to go along with that. Our timeline goal of that is implemented by Zach Riley-Kelly, our technology person, and then timeline goals to start of next school year. Evacuation maps need to be enhanced. So we have maps at each one of our schools in the office areas that are easy to get to in the case of an emergency. I met with Beverly Hills and Birmingham police about a month and a half ago, and it was comforting to find they said the same thing. Let's update the maps and so forth. We're in the process of doing that, and we'll have that implemented by the beginning of the 2022 school year. Another one I alluded to a second ago: glass at main entry points could be enhanced for safety. This is protective glass film. It's not bulletproof glass, but it is bullet retardant that we have put in for a grant for 5 secondary schools that we would like to have implemented, put in the summer. If the grant is awarded, we're optimistic that it is. That's what the grant was for. And then we'll look at bond funding for elementary schools to update the class at our elementary schools. Finding 16 is deals with threat assessment in social media, and consider social media monitoring and so forth. And that's something we're working with Jason Russell on. He'll provide guidance to us on that. Finding 17 is additional medical supplies, stop the bleed trauma kits, and kits alongside with AEDs. And these are we order these in our grant, or they're in our grant that we plan on having for the fall. Finding 18, security camera alignment and placement. Continue to work through that. Finding 19, updating alarm procedures. Just some of the procedures we have in case of alarm. We want to make sure they're more concise and updated step by step to each one of those. The use of a PR firm in the worst case scenario. We already have that in place with firm Byron and Fisk. Finding 21, best practices for school to have a well-developed behavioral threat assessment program that is documented. We certainly have a threat assessment tool in place, which we've utilized a number of times this year. We will have ongoing training on that. And we have, including next week at the with Oakland County. Finding 22, the labeling of cameras means that where the cameras are some of them is confusion on the label for the principals and folks to look at. We're updating that as we go. I think we've already done a ton of work on that and have that completed by the summer of 2022. Visitor management software is something that he recommends would be beneficial. We'll clarify what that is and what standardized visitor management system and see what software he is recommending, and then we'll try to implement that as needed in the future. And finally, the last one is dealing with policies, is review of policies and update as needed. And finally, there's some things that we are working on beyond the audit: thought exchange, access to mental health support, continuous threat assessment training, digital citizenship and character education, standardized process for drills, training for student searches, de-escalation training, and guidance on documentation regarding safety, bullying, et cetera, and board update in September regarding safety audit implementation. So we'll come back to the board in September and share again and again. And anytime you want me to come back to this group, I will share as well. So at this time, I'll open it up for questions.
I have questions. I just I'm interested, very interested in this topic and very aware of this. And I think you've done a great job, and I commend, the audit team, and I commend BPS for, getting on top of it and making all the changes. So I guess maybe this is a question for Kyle. I don't know if it's a Mark or a Kyle question. We're in a new trimester since the Oxford, we all reacted, and we had a lot of information that came out shortly after Oxford happened. So we're in a new trimester. I know last trimester, every teacher spoke to their class about what the evacuation plan was. Has that been addressed with the new trimester and the change of classrooms? And is that something that was done?
Yes, it has. It was one of the first things we asked the teachers to do during the first week. And we are in the process of looking at other ways, for example, looking at the cafeteria. Like what would happen? How would we evacuate or address some event if students are in the cafeteria, looking at the exits? And what we found when we were assessing the building earlier this year in second trimester was that not all the faculty and certainly not all the students understand the exit points around the building. For example, in the cafeteria, if the students were to go There are lots of doors in the cafeteria, but there are also exits on either entry point. Like you could go down either hallway or you could go behind the kitchen. And what we found, and this is in fire drills as well, we train our students so well, right? They think this is the exit, and this is how I go. But what happens if you can't go out that exit? You know, if the threat is coming this way, so or if there's a fire that way, you know, how do you go? And so we have learned, and this is starting to be part of our protocol, to have a kind of random, you can't go down this hall. You know, what would happen if you can't go down this hall in a fire drill? Not a lockdown necessarily, but we certainly want
Same
we're
principle. Yeah.
trying to provide that kind of measure of discussion anyway, and to show the students these are where the exits are, you know. And so those are things that we're looking at doing this trimester. And as Mark has said, we're when we talked to Jason Russell when he was in our building, he emphasized the importance of a protocol and a system and knowing the system. And he said that even in Oxford, it wasn't necessarily that you had to practice it over and over again. They didn't practice scenarios so much as they talked about where you would go, what you would do. And that is something that's hard for us as parents and as educators to acknowledge, but something that we have to do. This is there have to be plans in place. There has to be discussion of this kind of thing. That's the reality of our world.
Do the kids know the relocation site? Like I asked my daughter, I was like, where do you go when you run home? And we live close. And she's like, I run home. And I was like, well, I think you're supposed to go to a spot so they can count you. And
well, actually, the first thing they do is need to leave an exit. And so that she's right there. If she could run home, that's where she should go, you know. And then there is that site, which is our at the First Presbyterian Church on Maple, you know, students can go, the reunification point. We did discuss that in second trimester. You know, when we had the lockdown, the teachers announced that. We have not done that again, but we also realized that we need to do it again and again and again so that students know. But the reunification point is something really that we go to later, so that once it's cleared, right, that the police come in, they clear it, that yes, you can go to the reunification point. So that way everybody rejoins there, so we can make sure that everybody is accounted for. So your child is right that they run into the neighborhood, you know, and there are all sorts of places they can go and families they can go to get away, and then they go to the reunification point.
I'll give somebody else a chance if someone else has some questions.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Okay, now I'm unmuted. So I have two questions. My first question is, in the slideshow, it seemed to address the number one point, which is my number one point, which is the full-time SRO. Is the school district committed, and are the funds available to have a full-time SRO dedicated to Seaholm for the 22-23 school year?
Yes, I mean, we've looked at the budget and the salaries, current salaries, and the staffing that we have, and we think that it's right around budget neutral to pivot on how we're doing it in contract form. So yes, I mean, I think our biggest challenge is going to be is finding somebody out there. There's just not a lot of law enforcement available out there, and then what does that mean? I mean, we're talking. I'm meeting with Beverly Hills and Birmingham chiefs this week. I mean, I think I've got one meeting tomorrow and one meeting on Friday. I met with them 3 or 4 weeks ago. We talked about where we are with it. So that it's not like there's not challenges with finding that is what we think. There's also the option of privatizing that part of it, or possibly using Oakland County Sheriff's Office, which is, but our best bet would be to have folks in our community and in us to have a say in who is picked for that position. Would be our aspiration.
Okay. Thank you. And then my second question, when we had a larger meeting several months ago before the report was done, there were several items brought up. I know that night locks was one of them that some of the other schools have, and there were a lot of other good suggestions. When you went through the PowerPoint presentation, it really seemed like all of the points were focused on addressing what we currently had in place as opposed to what we could add to the school. So I'm just wondering, what was the scope of this study, if I can ask? Because it doesn't seem to offer up anything new, just where we're deficient in what we have.
Yeah, so I do think there's some, that one is some of the items that you talked about in prior to me coming here. Certainly we were explored night locks, metal detectors. Some of those things were asked about. The night locks, our security officer or security consultant did not think they were a good solution. In fact, he thought they could be a challenge of getting trapped inside with somebody in there who could be active, and it was not a recommendation of what he then, and he said a single lock is good enough, and his experience was, well, these were specific questions that we asked, and his experience was that shooters haven't been going to doors that were locked, so he did not recommend that.
Is that portion, oh, I'm sorry to cut you off, but just really quick, is that portion of the report available for public review so we can see all of the items that they looked at and said, but we don't recommend this?
Yeah. So that is not in the written report. That is in a verbal question that was asked by us to him on it. His notes and so forth. He had a protocol that he did visit at every single school. It's a fair question, and I can certainly ask him to provide that for us in writing, because he was firm about that. That he did not think that was a good recommendation. There was a couple things that we asked, because we had heard from the community, that and metal detectors, that he did not think were good suggestions.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Mark, is it fair to say that the security audit was all encompassing? Now it appears, and I understand the point of view, that it appears that it was focused on what we already have, but I think there's a story in there that says we have a lot of stuff, and I think Leslie was able to go and actually hear directly. Leslie's here, and Andrea were able to actually go to the meeting, and they were also on the night lock, and I was on the metal detectors. And I think it was just really interesting, because in that particular discussion, that was all part of the security audit. So if it's not in the recommendation, it is because it's not recommended. But he did give like his own personal point of view. So I don't know if Leslie and Andrea, you want to share any of your, what you heard from that meeting relative to the guy who actually did the audit. But I would say that there was not a limited scope when it came to doing the audit. It was just that he didn't recommend it. And that's why it's not in the recommendations. But I understand your point of view, that it would give the impression that maybe the scope of the audit was limited to certain things. And I don't think that was the case.
So a couple key things. We will continue to work with Mr. Russell. I talked to him today. I mean, Exchange said, let's please continue to work with us. And then I'll address metal detectors one more time. Then I don't want to limit any questions at all. So I was in a school division where post Parkland, there was a concern, and we implemented metal detectors. And we never could get through the bottleneck of the front, and our board always wanted that. I mean, it was anyway, but it was always. I mean, my biggest worry was that bottleneck, because it was almost impossible to prevent that, and I always thought that was a soft target, because it was impossible not to get backed up with metal detectors in the building. I also say that I'll get back to our best shot at preventing anything is what's not in the safety audit. That is the good things that we do every single day in building relationships and creating a school that is embracing and where kids will tip us off to it. That is our very, very best chance and of will always be it. That's you know, it's beyond safety aspect of it, is just, you know, us being in tune, which I think we you know, I think we all folks here are doing it right now.
Right. I would like to just add too that the consultant came to Seaholm. He was there for about 2 hours. Delois, Mike and I walked the building with him. He looked at doors, he checked doors, he checked rooms, he checked exits. He, you know, we had a lengthy question and answer, and we asked some of those same questions that you're asking about night locks and about metal detectors and about the windows and about the security entrance and the security guards and the protocols. I mean, we really, you know, kind of hammered him on questions, because we also have those questions. And I want to say that it was not perfunctory at all. He didn't kind of hang out at the EAC and talk to CLT about, you know, what he perceived. He visited the classroom buildings and the classrooms and spent, I think, quite a bit of time, especially at the high schools, where, you know, we see these things happen. And so that's one point I'd like to make. The other point is to what Mark was just saying. Unfortunately, with that incident in Oxford, you know, it actually caused us to really examine some of the things we were doing at Seaholm. And his point, Mark's point about what are we doing, really what we want to do are those things we want to have in place, a culture, and we want to make sure we establish a culture that allows for communication, because the best thing is when our students hear things and then tell us, and we can act on those. And and that means we need to have a good relationship with the counseling department, who, you know, often hear things because students come to them, and that the counselors feel comfortable coming to the administration, and the teachers feel comfortable coming to the administration, and the kids feel comfortable going to the teachers. And so all the work we're doing on social emotional learning is also a part of our safety. It's good for the well-being of our students, but it's also ensures a level of safety when the students feel that they are valued in the building and that they can come to a trusted adult. And so we are, you know, definitely working on those things every day. And I do believe we have established that culture, and we work every day to continue that. And the same holds true with our parents, you know, that are, you know, that want to hear from our parents and welcome their input. And so I think that those things that can establish a preventative measure are often overlooked as we look at, you know, metal detectors, but those things are often after an incident has occurred, and we really want to put those things in place prior. I appreciate that Mark introduced that into the conversation, because I think that is extremely important.
I see Shannon, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so Kyle, you actually just touched on this a little bit, because it does seem like one of the most important things we could be doing, I mean, they're all important, is developing relationships. And so I immediately think, like, how do you do that when kids have their nose in their phones? So, you know, so I know at the younger, like I think about middle school, and they were restricted because, you know, some of it's like, well, you know, it's just the way of the world. So is there plans potentially to like restrict, you know, phone use during the school day to basically force some of, you know, so that, you know, the kids actually start reestablishing relationships, because, well, their noses aren't in the phone. So, and I'm not saying I'm actually already jumping to different things. Like, I guess I'm just wondering, what is the strategy? Like, there's only so many counselors, there's only so many administrators. Those relationships just happen in little bits and pieces on a day-to-day basis, and, you know, talking to one another.
Yeah, and I want to say this, because I mean, I love American public schools. I mean, we do so many things well. I mean, you have so many caring adults in that building that give you a great chance. I mean, I have one of the most disappointing things oftentimes is this school shooting things happen across our country and all that. But still, schools, I mean, you have and almost every time, not all of them, but you hope that the relationships of good teachers, which we have, and good administrators and counselors. I mean, there are a lot of them. It's not one-to-one, but by put all those adults together in there, it's probably 10-to-1, and that gives you a safer places you can send your children every day. It's not perfect, Shannon. I mean, it is not. It is not. I mean, I understand. And phones are probably the trap of all time. I mean, because what we want is we want them not to have them at school, but we really want them to have it because if there's an emergency, we need them to have it. If on a ball trip coming back, we want the parent there waiting for them and all that kind of stuff. Those are things that we didn't have years ago. But with that is a whole different set of things that are never going to end. I mean, the phone calls at 9 o'clock at night about a Snapchat that we're contacting the police about and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that is what we deal with in schools today. That we have to. So it's, I don't have an answer on the phone, Shannon.
No, and I'm not saying you do. It's like I always just wonder how. It's like there's an old commercial.
know.
It was like, have you lost your opportunity with your kid? And it was like a dad reading the newspaper and the kid on their phone at breakfast, and nobody talked to one another.
Oh my gosh.
And so for all of the effort that's out there, how do you engage a kid? So you guys have your work cut out for you, because I get your point on that we want them to have it, but at the same time, it's like, how do you engage with somebody who it's a two-way street? How do you do that when their nose is in their phone?
Right. Well, we do have, you're right, this is a huge conundrum and a huge, and probably actually more immediate and more relevant, because it's more likely that you're going to have problems with phone addiction, and those kinds of things. I was on the way into the building today, and there was a radio, they were talking about it on the radio, and the neuro, physicist was saying, well, that it is affecting the kids' brains, but if you take it away for a while, maybe it can, come back to normal. Well, we do have a lot of teachers who do put the phones in the carriers, when they come into the classroom, or ask the students to put them in there. But now, of course, they have the phones on their wrists, and they also have it on the computer when the laptop's up. And so it is very, very, very difficult, as you all know, as parents, as we all know as parents, that we're seeing this with our own children. You're at Easter dinner and they're scrolling, and you're like, put the darn thing away. And so that does happen in the classroom as well. And a lot of, I'll be honest, Lois would tell you the same thing, that a lot of the problems that we're dealing with are often associated with phones, okay, and Snapchats and Instagrams and just having the phone out. But they're also a little bit of a security for us as well. So
yeah, that's a great point. I didn't think about that point. Good luck to you. Just kidding.
Hey, I got a 30-year-old that I'm still talking to about it. So,
but I do agree with that it's relationships are everything. I mean, I don't know if there have been studies out there, but I feel like, is there some sort of connection between this isolation and obsession with the phone and what you get out of that, and all of these increases in, violence that you see in schools and elsewhere? I don't know. But, I was thinking about it. I'm like, when you get less engaged with the community around you, it makes sense logically, but I have me, Kyle, I have no data to back it up. So I'm full disclosure on that. It's just a feeling.
Hey, I agree.
Anyways, those were the only other question I had, and then I'll defer to anybody else. Sorry, I'm consuming the time here. Is there was a issue on one of the findings was around Alice, and the bottom paragraph said something about that there's focus on the evacuation. And I was having trouble figuring out if that was an issue or not the issue, or that they were only focused on one thing. So I wasn't following that particular issue very well.
I can answer that, Shannon, because he part of the training that he wants to follow up on is that evacuation may not always be the best answer. Sometimes it is to hold, and if we always get into now that it's always just flee, and that is I mean, I've been through enough trainings to know. I mean, when you have we're where the sounds are and all that kind of stuff, and you're fleeing. But there are also times that he's stressed in there, and he's going to provide some training for us on when there's times to hunker down as well.
Got it. Thank you. Those are my questions.
I have one. Oh, go ahead.
I have a question. Thinking about recent tragedies in southern Florida and in Oxford, if the same scenario happened at Seaholm, is there a robust enough plan to enable all of the children to go home alive? Have you simulated that? Do you have plans to simulate it? Please, can you explain what you've done in regard to those scenarios?
Gavin, I mean, you've cut to the root of all of our fears and so forth. I mean, there's nothing that whether it's a mall or a theater, wherever the other horrific shootings that have occurred across our country, that there is a guarantee of success. We are a school, public school, and we have 1,100 kids go on. Private schools face the same challenge. Theaters, malls, or wherever you go, there's vulnerability there. So Gavin, I wish I could tell you differently. I cannot, other than we are doing our absolute very best, and we'll continue to work on that. I can guarantee that.
I think one of the implied or stated in your question too is, are we going to simulate or is that what you're asking? Like, are we going to have a scenario where we practice that? Is that one of the things that you're asking?
Yes, I think when you look at practices that are involving safety, the best organizations in each industry go through the scenario, and the first time that they do it, they don't do very well, and they learn from it, and then the next time they do it better, and by the time they practice it enough, they've got it under control. And I think what the parents are looking for is a sufficiently polished plan so that we don't need to worry about it. When we talked about this earlier in the year, we brought up the subject of, do you need to ask parents for money to provide metal detectors? And it's not that we necessarily need metal detectors, but we need a plan that means there is a child that has a mental issue and brings a gun to school in their backpack, that it's screened out and it presents no danger. And the major failure of Oxford was that although the child was crying out for help, neither the school staff nor the police had the wherewithal to search the child's backpack. So I think the point here is, if we have a similar situation to what happened down in Florida, or a similar situation in Oxford, how do we make sure that the scenario, and maybe you could train for it on a Saturday or throughout the school vacations coming up, but how do you make sure that no matter what the situation, that everybody understands what they need to do and takes whatever action is appropriate so that all the children get to go home?
Yeah, Gavin, I will absolutely meet when I meet the police this week, and I met with them last week and see if it is a scenario, if you how you would simulate and practice it. I mean, I think having students in the building practicing is not going to be feasible, but lockdowns are. I do think you can learn from Oxford and training was for searches is listed on our PowerPoint. Threat assessment is in place, and those are some of the devices that you do have in place that are planned out for both.
Right. I would say things that I think I'm hearing. One of the things that the consultant said to us was that you do need to have a protocol, and I think we saw that in Mark's presentation. There needs to be a consistency. He talked about even Oakland County having a consistency, that there needs to be a consistent protocol that everybody is aware of, and that even, the consultant talked about how we present it, needs to be and needs to be repetitive and needs to be constant. So I think to your point, we might not need to have actually a simulation, but we do need to have protocols in place that the students are aware of. I think Jenny's point early on, like I asked my child, do they know? They don't know, or she didn't know the reunification point, then these are things they should know. And so there are some things we can tell students in just discussion, but that they, just like they need to learn things, this is something that they need to learn. And your other question, I think what I read in there were, maybe, do you have the protocols in place, that would search a student, for, or his backpack, should you have suspicion of something? And the answer to that is yes. We, as Mark just said, yes, we have those in place. And we do search our students and their backpacks, and we don't need to be honest, we don't need to have it's not like law, that you need to have a reasonable suspicion, you need a warrant, no, you don't. I mean, we just have to feel like there's something there and we need to look at your bag. And so we will do that. And we will do that for even for students that we are concerned about who might, self-harm, look at you, because we need to know. And so we're trying to protect you. We're trying, so we do that. It happens every day, but we're all trained in that. There are protocols surrounding that. We certainly follow, the law on that, and our, central leadership is very careful about that. But we do that on occasion, and we're not afraid to do that.
Thank you. I do have one sort of add-on. So I recognise that there are, financial considerations, especially given the way that the money is being managed in our district. But I think that there's always the scope to reach out to parents who would certainly, in many cases, certainly in my own, be willing to reprioritise the household finances in cases of safety. So would it be possible for the school leadership team to think about what they would need from the parents to make our school the best in Oakland County, if not further afield, and reach out to the parents for whatever it is you need, so that we are best in class for safety?
Gavin, I feel supported that way. I mean, I feel like if we asked, we would get it. I mean, I think that the backpacks with trauma kits and all that kind of thing. I mean, maybe that's an ask we give parents. I'd like to see if we could do it ourselves first, but the other things, I mean, if there are needs that are high cost, I mean, I do feel confident that if we asked, we'd be supported. But I think that I appreciate that sentiment, and there may be a time that we ask that question of our families.
Yeah, I think it's a well-meant question and a well-meant request.
Yeah.
And please, don't let pride get in the way.
Yes.
Request.
Thank you, Gavin, for saying that.
Thank you.
I forgot. And one of the things I was talked about was, when this first started was backpacks, clear backpacks. Did Did Russell have anything to say about that?
Yeah, sure did. So that was a question we went through with him. I mean, we vetted it and asked questions just like you're doing right now, peppered him with it. And the backpack, clear backpack was trying to think of everything that you could ask. And the clear backpack, sounds clear backpack is, it's okay, what's inside the clear backpack? If you put a hoodie inside a clear backpack, can you conceal there? What all's in there? Is if you put your lunch bag in your clear backpack, whatever it may be. So it doesn't seem to be an answer that is going to reap substantial safety rewards.
Right.
So yeah, in his opinion.
Thank you.
Hey Jenny, go ahead.
So I don't want to change the focus of this. Maybe it's more a statement. I listened to the board meeting and your presentation the other night, and I'm in agreement with Trustee Young when she brought up the question about the late start. And your answer was, we're going to think about late start when we think about the trimester to semester switch. And I just am wondering why we're waiting a year when we have so many conclusive studies. And we did a little bit of a late start during COVID, and it was such a huge thing for the kids to just get a little more sleep and a little more time. And so why are we waiting a year on the late start with the mental health aspect of that?
Yeah. Jenny, I just think it's hard to pull it off between now, this year and next year and create a new schedule for the high school if we do that. I mean, I do think it's a priority, and I don't know if there it is. We even brought it up again today. I mean, as a team, so can we pull it off in any way? So I'm not saying heck no, it's impossible, but we're meeting with our transportation folks this week, talk about routing and all that. I mean, maybe it's there, but I do agree with you that a later start would be better and better for mental health and all that. And let's all help us get there. If it's not immediate, then in another year and update our schedule to that's better for everybody.
I thank you. I just wanted to give another plug for, I know that the parent community is very
Yeah.
supportive and would like the late start, as the high school community anyway would like it as soon as possible.
Yeah, we hear you. I would too.
Jenny, I have to admit, I'm over here laughing. I'm like, only Jenny, every single time. I think it's your MO. Right at 7:59, like a whole new topic that's like.
It's, what, the late start is the hill that I'm willing to die on. And my daughter, for the record, Mark, will be a senior next year. It won't even affect me.
I'm sorry, Jenny. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm out. After 16 years in Birmingham Public Schools, I've been lobbying since she was in kindergarten for this.
Oh. Well, when we get it updated, if she's not quite here, you can come out there and celebrate and smile with us for help getting it done.
Well, it is 8 o'clock. I'll ask one last time if there's other questions. Any questions that we want to cover? Okay, well, we are good on time. The only thing I want to mention is, and I'll have it posted on Facebook, but there are a couple of Birmingham Education Foundation fundraisers coming up, one on May 12th and 13th. It's to shop locally. There'll be more information on it. There wasn't a lot of information sent to me, but May 12th and 13th, there is some, I think, local shopping you can do, and 20% of the proceeds go there. And then there is an opportunity during Teacher Appreciation Week to, do shout outs and do some donations from that side. So we will get it posted on the Facebook site so that we can make sure that the members can see what's available and help raise some funds for the Birmingham Education Foundation. So, but thank you, Mark. I really appreciate the time. I know we all do. That was a lot to get through. I am a former auditor, and I was like, oh, geez, this is bringing back some major memories right now. So, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Y'all have a great evening. Okay.
Yep. One last question. Is that Alabama behind you? I have been dying to figure that out.
It's a great story. When I was a football coach, that was a young man who was he had like a learning disability, and it took him, he went to Rutgers and played, ended up waiting like 7 or 8 years before he played in the NFL, and played for one season for the Cardinals. And anyway, one day I was in my office as a superintendent, he brought that picture to me. And then right before I left, we all got together again in January, and all the fellas signed it, and it just really meaningful, and just it's one of those things that as a teacher you get to carry with you forever. So
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I asked.
he would be thrilled that you asked.
Thank you. All right, everyone have a good evening.
See ya.
Shannon, I'm going to stop the live Facebook. Do you want to chat about,
Yes. Want to stay
okay,
on? Yes.
Well, we lost Leslie and Andrea, but I think everybody else can go. We'll just about teacher appreciation.
You don't need me. You
We
don't
do
need
not,
me.
Kyle. Thank
You're
you.
good. Okay. All right.
want me
Thanks,
to-
you guys. I thought it went well. So thank
It
you.
was,
Yeah, I do too. I mean, it's turnout, but